Wow. Hello. Look at all your gorgeous faces. So nice to see you all. Some familiar faces, some unfamiliar faces, which I love. Who's new to my work? Who's brand new? Great, a few of you. Super. Welcome. So for anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Rhonda McCrimmon. I am the author of The Cauldron and the Drum and also the Celtic Wheel of the Year, which it comes out in January. And our event today is to celebrate that, to tell you a little bit about it, and to dive into the winter solstice. So, solstice blessings to you guys. Some of you are like, I love your hair. Thanks. Thanks. Anybody who's followed me on social media will know that I've been blonde for some time. 7 years. It was time for a change. It's time for a change. So this is more my natural colour. So this is what we'll do for a while until it changes again. So before we do the kind of anything really, we want to just welcome Morrígan and feel her presence. I've done some work today to connect with her and ask for her to be here with us. And after this class, if anybody felt so inclined, leaving offerings for the Morrígan is a good thing to do. Traditional Celtic offerings include oats, milk, and honey. So potentially you'll have some of those things. Anything will do. She's happy with that. Leave them outside. It's not the only time at this time of year we leave offerings to a deity, is it? We'll be doing that on Christmas Eve as well. I have a 4-year-old, so we'll be leaving things out. So before we dive into the class itself, a couple of things. Do use the chat box. We're here, that's what it's for. I might not get to your questions straight away, but we have Dave. Wave Dave. Wave Dave. Dave's here. Dave's a co-teacher at the Centre for Shamanism with me. And Dave will be collecting up your questions. And also Sally's here as well. Sally's camera is off, but Sally is our gorgeous Insight Events and Hierophant Publishing support lady who's just fantastic. So thank you, Sally, for being here and supporting us with this class. So those guys will be picking up questions and making sure that I don't miss any. So you are welcome to ask questions as we go through the class. The first half will be kind of heavy information because some of you like that. And the second half, and we're 2 hours long, and the second half we'll be doing a solstice journey together to meet the Morrígan. And depending on how we get on time-wise, there'll be a chance for sharing and questions at the end. If you need to get up and move around, that's fine. You know, you don't need to announce your arrival or departure. You can just meet your needs as you need to. And anybody who's in the southern hemisphere, which is always a question, anybody in the southern hemisphere? Are we all in the northern hemisphere at the moment? Anybody on replay then who happens to be in the southern hemisphere, you absolutely can connect with the energy of Morrígan and winter solstice as your Celtic ancestors would have done at this time of year. Even if you're on the other side of the earth, your ancestors are up here connecting with that energy. So it still absolutely works. And you get to do both, which is cool. You get to do the solstice, the summer solstice and the winter solstice at the same time, which is really cool. Okay, so where is everybody coming from? Let's see. BC, Santa Fe, lovely. The Pacific Northwest, I have some friends there. North Central Washington, all over the world. North Texas, Alberta, New York, Copenhagen, yay. A fellow European, fantastic. From Italy, Missouri, fantastic, all over the place. Wisconsin, Alaska, Wales. Oh, Wayne, hi. Well, your name. Super, okay. Scotland, yay. Jill, is that Jill? Is that you, Jill? Where are you? Wave your hands. I've lost you. So many people. Anyway, if it's Jill, hi. Okay, so We're going to talk about the Morrígan in detail. We're going to talk about the Yule and the winter solstice, the north of the wheel of the year, which is what we're in now. And we'll touch briefly on the wheel of the year, just to give you a wee, a wee bit of insight. One of the things that I just want to talk about to begin with is this idea of winter solstice, Yule, and whether Yule is or is not part of a Celtic wheel of the year. There isn't it depends what you want to put in your wheel of the year. Marina's here. Hi, Marina, from Fife. I'm from Fife as well. Fellow Fifer. Now, in Scotland, we have celebrated Yule for around about 1,000 years. It came across from Norse and Germanic tribes down through Shetland, Orkney, and into Scotland. So it has been part of our tradition for a hell of a long time. So it is considered by many to be a deeply traditional part of, at the very least, Scottish tradition, if not British. But if you're going to get pedantic, which some people like to do, Celtic is Iron Age, and Iron Age was 2,000 years ago. So Yule wasn't around at that time. So it would be quite difficult to place Yule and its traditions as part of a more ancient wheel of the year, because it's a Norse tradition, actually. However, that, kind of brings the question forward, what is tradition? How is tradition formed? And a lot of the work that I do in my book is to say, well, here are traditions that exist that people love and connect with. Some of them are older than others, and that's okay. And what I encourage people to do is to say, well, how does it feel to me? What do I enjoy? And I wrote a newsletter this week, and I was talking about the difference for me between Christmas and Yule, and actually and the winter solstice. So we have a few wee Yule things that we do, being Scottish. We have a lot of Christmas things that we do. My memories of Christmas as a child are very fond and lovely. This is part of what we do as our family. So it's like, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We also want to do what feels right to us. So a lot of the book that I've written isn't, here are the rules, and this is the wheel, and this is what you must do. It's more like, here is what we know. Here is how we could place these ideas. Some of them are fairly difficult to move, considering how much information we have. And some of the ideas are more fluid. Perhaps they're older. Perhaps we're just not as sure, and we don't really know, and there's lots of different ways to interpret it. Samhain is a great example. There are many Samhain traditions that are quite new. One of them being that Samhain is the Celtic New Year. I mean, that's a very new idea. That's probably about 100 years old. Older testimony, older medieval texts. So there's a couple of mentions that potentially we might have had a new year around now, like the winter solstice or Hogmanay as well, and also in the spring, around the spring equinox. There's a few mentions of New Year. If the ancient Celts even had the concept of a new year, which we don't really know. So even in the first 4.5 minutes of this workshop, we're like, wow, I don't really know. And we don't, is the thing. A lot of the things that we connect with, we don't know. So that's really what the book's about, is helping you to know what we know, and then to create a wheel that you love and that you can work with in a way that works for you. Okay, so we're going to touch on some of those ideas throughout tonight. Now, what is true is that the winter solstice is the moment where the sun stands still, isn't it? In the sacred north, the north of the wheel of the year, which we're going to talk about. So right in the middle of the north. So the north of the wheel of the year begins at Samhain and ends at Imbolc in February. So that's the north. And the solstice is right in the middle. It's the darkest point. It's when almost like the world's at its quietest. I'm not going to go into the winter solstice in too much detail. We all know the lore if you've been in this work for any length of time. But what is true, I think, is that we can kind of become a little averse to the dark, to the quiet, with our electricity and our modern ways, which do not take our circadian rhythm into account. are 9-to-5 jobs that some folk have to connect with. Maybe you really love it, that's fine, but it's not how we would have lived. We would have been very quiet at this time of year. We would have been inside, hopefully safe, hopefully with the food stored, and potentially there would have been some kind of celebration at the winter solstice. The funny thing about the winter solstice is that, as far as the ancient Celts were concerned, if you're going to use that academic point of explanation, which would be the Iron Age, there's no evidence that the Celts celebrated the winter solstice in any way. They did, it seems to be, use it as some kind of marker of time. It doesn't mean that they didn't celebrate it, but there's also no evidence of any of the equinoxes or solstices being a festival per se. So they were definitely used as markers of time, but not necessarily as a festival. So the winter solstice is really important, but it was important as the midway point in the north, and the point at which things start to shift towards the light. That's always been observable. Now, if you go pre-Iron Age into the Neolithic, then you have things like Newgrange, Callanish, Stonehenge, which all use the equinoxes and solstices to great effect. However, for example, Stonehenge was 1,000 years out of use by the time of the Celts. So there's the thing to remember when you dive into this world is that you'll get people who are a little pedantic about language. So I like to share some of those the parameters that people like to interact with this information with. For me, I care less about the parameters and more about what sings to my soul, and more about how I connect with the spirit, and more about the ways that ancient wisdom can help us today. All right. So, for example, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight are spiritual senses. So just a quick question for everybody. Who here feels like they have spiritual something? You can wave, stick a 1 in the chat. I have it. Okay, good. Lots of people. We have it. I think it's an innate gift of most humans. I don't like to make sweeping statements and say everybody, because that'd be silly, but one would hope that if you're here, then you at least know that you have some kind of spiritual sense. Now, another question would be, do you feel like you are fully connected to your spiritual senses? Or do you feel like perhaps there are certain blocks or certain ideas you might have in your head or certain issues you might face just being really connected? So if you feel like you could connect more with your spiritual senses, 2 in the chat, tell me. So you want to connect more. You have some blocks. Yeah. Okay, so lots of folk. That's good. So one of the things that we'll do tonight it's 5 o'clock here, so it's tonight for me. So one of the things we'll do tonight is we're going to connect with the Morrígan and ask for help with those spiritual senses, and ask to be more clearly connected to those innate skills that we have. So you might be thinking, I wonder what the Morrígan can do. The battle goddess, how's that going to help? I don't know. Let's talk about that. So I think lots of people think that the Morrígan is an Irish goddess. First of all, it's very important to Scottish, not Irish, by the way. I have Irish ancestry, but I'm very much a Scot. But Morrígan is an Irish goddess, and she not only is she a battle goddess, and the reason that she is the goddess of the north of the Wheel of the Year, probably, is because of that association. So the North's main attribute in the Wheel of the Year is battle, and obviously the Morrígan is a battle goddess, but she is also a goddess of sovereignty. She's not the only goddess of sovereignty, by the way. There are others, the quietest being one of them, but she is a goddess of sovereignty. And that's the aspect of her that we'll be working with tonight. So a lot of people think sovereignty and think, oh, you know, it means like a queen on a throne. But let's dig a little bit deeper. So the word sovereignty comes from Latin, super annis. Super is over or above, and annis is chief or principal. So essentially, sovereignty means, if you have sovereignty, it means that you are the chief authority over yourself. Right? You're the one who governs your life. You stand over your domain and nobody else gets a vote. All right? Your body, your energy, your intuition, your knowing. So when the Morrígan shows up as in that aspect of a goddess of sovereignty, she's going to ask you point blank, who has authority over your spiritual senses? Who decides what you are or are not allowed to know? And that can be a tricky question. So I think many folk that I work with, and myself included, had given away that authority to others. And that's just the nature of how we live, apparently, as human beings. We want other people to do it for us. Or we've had it taken from us by the way we were, quite simply the way we were brought up a lot of the time. We don't have this sense of sovereignty, of dominion over our own destiny, so to speak. So tonight, we're going to really connect with that idea. We're going to connect with we're going to remember, because we do have it as in us. We have to just remember what it's like to be in sovereignty. And I think that modern life is really brutal on our spiritual senses. So we grow up hearing that magic isn't real and logic matters way more than intuition. In fact, intuition can be laughed at and belittled and sneered at, and people can be really contemptuous, actually. And one of the biggest issues that human beings face in their lizard brain is the fear that they will be cast out from their tribe, and because that means death. So in order for many of us who are aware of our spiritual senses, are so scared of being, even unconsciously scared of being cast out from our tribe, the modern human tribe that we're in, that we just push it away, push it down, hide it. We're scared to talk to people about it for fear of judgment. Does anybody recognise those feelings of fear? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we come to a place like this and we're like, look at all these people, oh my goodness, there's many folk who feel the same way and who want to connect. And I remember during my training, for anybody who doesn't know, I used to be an accountant and I worked in a very corporate environment, and I started to train in shamanism while I was still running a company. And I remember needing case studies, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna ask people and see what they say. I'm tired of hiding. I told people I was going on meditation retreats and stuff that was acceptable, so I would lie because I was embarrassed. And then one day I thought, oh, I'm not going to give my power away like that anymore. I just asked people, and they were clamoring. They were so excited about it. They were like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've never heard, I want to be one of your case studies. And I had a queue of people. I had to do more case studies than I was supposed to do to accommodate everybody in the office. So you just never know is the point. I'm not saying that will happen with everybody, but for me, I've definitely noticed that having sovereignty, because I was done. I was so confident in myself, but at that point I was I'm so done hiding, I'm just not going to do it. It wasn't it wasn't a question. There was a sovereign air about it, and people just responded really well to that. So I think there is something there about just being so absolutely yourself that you also give other people permission to do that as well. And there's a real courage in that, I think. And that's a real Celtic trait, is courage. It's one of their main 3 values. I wonder how many folk we've got here who are either from the British Isles somewhere or who have family or ancestry who are Celtic. Yeah. Yeah. Because everybody's welcome in my classes. I don't mind at all. But I'm just curious. Oh, that's wonderful. Very strong ancestry. Isn't it wonderful when we can all like be together and have this like ancestral memory together and just have it like can it be so powerful at this point in time? It's lovely. So anyway, we have these like issues with our modern world and our spiritual senses and our worry about what that means. And it can often leave us feeling disconnected and cut off from the guidance that we innate. I think most of us know we have connection to our intuition. Like you call each other at the same time, or you text a friend at the same time, or you don't overtake when you're driving, even though it seems safe and it wouldn't have been safe, or you just take a different way to work, or something doesn't feel right and it turns out you were right. And I mean, it's all there. The evidence is there. But for some reason, we continue to deny that evidence, the evidence of our own lived experience. And one of the reasons is that we lack this sovereignty to say to the tribe, here, this is what I'm doing. Full stop. Okay, so the Morrígan knows this. She's seen it 1,000 times, and she, she's here to support us to really connect with that energy. And again, we're in the north, so let's go back to the north for a minute. I just want to cover some information about that. So the sacred north that the Morrígan is the goddess of is the direction of battle, courage, and endurance. Now, you might be thinking, what has this got to do with spiritual senses? About battles. And I think that for many of us, reclaiming sovereignty is a battle that we face. Does anybody feel like that? Maybe feel it can be a bit of a battle to like really just get it, really just get it in here. Yeah. Yeah, the battle is, as Tanya says, often with oneself, which is exactly the point that I'm going to make, is that in the past, so there was an ancient Irish text called The Settling of the Manor of Tara, where they describe the directions, and it's essentially where we get our information about the Celtic Wheel of the Year, or in this case, Irish. And the North has these attributes. They all do, which I talk about. I can't go over them all today, but we'll do the North's attributes. So the North is battle, contests, strongholds, rough roads, combats, arrogance, vanity, pride, glory, aggressiveness, bravery, and valours, right? Now, what's interesting about a lot of those words is that there's some words in there that we might not like arrogance and vanity and pride. But these are attributes from an ancient Irish manuscript. So they do belong somewhere. But one of the things that is also true is that the Celts had slaves, and they would go into battle and then drink for 2 weeks straight and have these huge parties. Now, as somebody who's sober, I'm not planning on reimagining that. As someone who prefers to be non-violent, I'm like not going to start raiding my neighbour's vegetable garden and cutting them down at dawn. Just not going to do that. We're not trying to recreate the ancient past, because if you want to, you can stay away from me because it'd be bloody dangerous. So that's not what we're trying to do, right? We're not trying to recreate the past. What we are trying to do, though, is connect with the ideas and the wisdom that works for us today in the life that we live. So when we're talking about things like battles and combats, as Tanya said a minute ago, the battles that we face today are often interpersonal or personal, internal. They're rarely showing up in a field at dawn and cutting people's heads off and stealing their skulls. Like, that's just not, those aren't the battles that we face, thankfully. But we do face some pretty difficult interpersonal battles with family, with our past, with the people that we potentially have to work with. Like, they're everywhere, but we just have to reimagine what it looks like. So yeah, battle and combats, they happen internally. So the North will ask, you know, what are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to fight for, first of all? And so, you know, we might talk about values as well in the North. Because living by your values can be a real battle in our society, actually, especially given the way that we tend to want to fit in on a deep cellular level. It's very difficult. And then we have strongholds. So strongholds are defenses. So the boundaries potentially, so the strongholds can be a good thing. So there are boundaries that you build to protect what's sacred in you. Maybe you need strongholds to keep yourself safe, to protect your intuition from people who would shut it down or tear it down. You know, it makes a lot of sense. Like, strongholds are a good thing. But on the dark side of a stronghold, you can't live in it forever, or you can't live in a box, or you can't live behind walls. We do need to find people that we trust and connect with. So if you are one who always has strongholds all the time, then you will really struggle with your spiritual senses, because you're not connecting with anybody, and we are tribal people and we are supposed to connect. Rough roads is another interesting one. So I think what that says is that so in the context of this workshop, reclaiming your sovereignty is unlikely to be smooth. You're probably going to have a bit of a rough road. You'll stumble, you'll fall, you'll doubt yourself, you'll swing too hard and then hurt someone's feelings. It was, whoops, a bit unnecessary, and then we have to swing back to centre. You might be like, unexpected things may happen, death, the change in financial circumstances. They're like, there's just so many things that can happen in life that really can rattle, right? So to expect a rough road is a good thing, because when we're like, this is going to be a challenge, there's going to be a challenge for me here, you can expect it. You can put the right footwear on. You know, you're not going to try and walk a Monroe in flip-flops. Okay, so you're going to have the right tools, and you're going to build a toolkit that can really support you to face these difficult times. Now, arrogance and pride are interesting. So I'll go into this in more detail in the book, but there's something interesting about arrogance that connects back to the idea of claiming for oneself. And people have real contempt for arrogance. So if you have deep contempt for arrogance, then potentially there's like something in there for you. So if anybody does shadow work, yeah, we'll know that it's the difference between having a boundary around someone being arrogant and having deep disgust and contempt. There sometimes is like a wee kernel in there. And the kernel isn't necessarily that you want to be arrogant, but perhaps what you really would love to be able to do is to claim something for yourself without guilt and without worrying about what other people are going to think of you. So when other people like arrogantly claim things and you feel disgust and contempt, potentially it's because, oh, do you know what, perhaps you don't want to be horrible about it, and you don't want to be a show-off about it, but you would like to do it. You would like to claim something for yourself. So there is a way that we can interact with the word and have it be useful. Again, pride is the same thing. Pride in self-respect, pride in oneself, holding your head high, you know, saying my intuition matters, my spiritual senses are valid, and having pride in that, you know. So there are ways to interact with words that can be useful, as opposed to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, one of my favourite sayings. Now, all of the northeast, south and west have colour associations, and the colour of the north is black. You would expect that. I mean, that's pretty expected, isn't it? So the black is like the cosmic void, you know, the womb of creation, the fertile darkness where all things begin. And the Celtic wheel is split into two originally, two halves, and it would have been between Samhain and Bealtaine. And we're now in the north, which is in the feminine half of the year, in the dark. So it is the place of spiritual senses, the dark, the black. It is that place where you can unfussily connect with deep intuitive sense that doesn't need external validation. So in the dark, quiet, mysterious places where the feminine principle of emotion and intuition and magic, and it's hard to put into words because words make it not what it is. It's very unconscious in a good way. Being in the flow state. That's in the dark where our spiritual senses can really come alive, because there's not all this other racket competing for your attention in the dark. And the Celts believed that all things were born from the dark, so their days would begin in the evening, and they would begin their day by setting their intentions and then sleeping, so that the cosmic dark would take what they want for their day and plant seeds, and then it would be born into the light and lived out through the day, which I think is lovely. And I'm interested in how you guys feel about the dark. Who likes the dark? Who's like a light? I'm like, yes, I can't wait till it's the summer. I love the light. Who's a lighty? Oh, not too many light. Some lighties. Good. And then who's a balancer? Who likes both? Who's like, oh, I can see love in both places. Yeah. I'm there now. Are you one of these? Do you know what I am? I'm one of these who's like, oh my God, I love the winter so much. It's like my favourite season. And then the spring, I'm like, oh my God, I love the spring. It's like my favourite season. And then the summer, I'm like, oh my God, I love the summer. I mean, I just love the sun. It's amazing. And then the autumn, I'm like, oh my God, I love this time of year. It's like my favourite time of year. Do you guys do that? I do that like every season. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah. I think if I had summer is sweaty, well, I'm in Scotland, so not so much. It's just bra here. It's just nice. Bra means good, nice. But if I had to choose a season, I would choose autumn. That's definitely my season. Autumn and the run up to Samhain, I'd say. But only if you had a gun in my head. I do love all the seasons. Okay. Off-piste. Here, that's not bad. Those guys who know me, right? That's half an hour before I went off-piste on some random tangent. Right, back to it. What else I want to talk about? The Morrígan. Let's switch over to the Morrígan now. So there's a lot of stuff about the Morrígan that is wildly misunderstood, I think. Mary, it's a miracle. Ha ha ha. Yes. But anyway, her people like to call her, you know, when I just Google the Morrígan, she's a water goddess, dark goddess, and she's kind of reduced to bloodshed, ravens, and terror. Like there's just like it's just a bit reductionist. Her name is interesting as well. Her name has several possible translations. Some scholars think that it means phantom queen. Other people think it means great queen. I'm not an academic, just not even remotely, but I do love academics. I really appreciate the work that they do because it allows people like me to do the work that I do. And the people that I read their work and listen to, I think Phantom Queen tracks. from the reading that I've done. And not only that, but just the energy of that being, you know. So Phantom Queen is one, Great Queen. The other thing as well is that the name Morrígan is thought to be a title rather than a name. So some people think that Danu, the goddess Danu, anybody know that name? Danu is a great, another great Irish goddess. Some people think that Danu or Anu, who are also the same goddess, are the Morrigan, and that's her title. So that there's some people who think that. Well, what the manuscripts actually tell us is that the Morrigan is a very complex supernatural figure associated with battle, yes, but also prophecy in a big way, sovereignty that we've talked about, shape-shifting. She appears as a red-clad woman, as a crow, as various animals. We'll talk about that. She prophesies death, but she also engages in sexual union, and she delivers visions of prosperity and cosmic dissolution. Like, she's a very varied being. So there's this idea of her being like a triple goddess who thinks that that's the case. Anybody who's been on my Instagram account hopefully is like, oh wait, no, Rhonda, maybe that's not true. So the triple goddess idea came from a guy called Robert Graves in the 40s, 1948, I think. And he wrote this book called The White Goddess. And it's just like, it's a very effective work of fiction. And if you read it, you're like, well, this, and if it was in the 40s, I'd be like, wow, this is amazing. But it's just fiction. There's like stuff in it that's just nonsense. But there's also stuff in it that isn't nonsense. And do you know that way where a book just hits the zeitgeist at the right time? So all these like decades later, we're still dealing with this guy's like nonsense, like the mother maiden crone archetype. That was him. Just made it up. It's not a thing. It's not Celtic. It's based in some Greek ideas, I think, and Eastern ideas. That is definitely not Celtic. Neither is the triple goddess idea. That was him as well. So the way that I like to deal with that is that some people really like that idea. They're like, wait, no, this is what I've read and this is what I don't care. I'm like, just you do you. Like, if you love it and it's in your life in a way that's woven and it's part of your experience and part of your spiritual path and part of what's helped you, great. Please don't think that I'm like, you shouldn't be using that, because I don't do that. I'm like, please do what's right for you. I just like to give information that's helpful. So for me, when we're talking about an ancient Irish goddess and we want to connect with her in this setting around sovereignty, I would like to bring in the energy that I work with, as opposed to some of the New Age ideas that you are very welcome to work with. And so let's give it a try. So no, Jackie, the triple goddess, I'm going to talk about this, Bave, Matcha and Neiman. That's what we're going to talk about in a minute. But it's actually Bave, Matcha and Morrigu as well. There's like different names for them. So they're sisters, not the same being. All right. So they're not like aspects of a single triple goddess. So they say that Matcha is killed by Balor in one text while the Morrigan survives. So they're sisters and they're separate entities who act and die independently. So the triple goddess framework, Mother Maiden Crone, is Maiden Mother Crone, sorry, is, you'll see, is applied to the Morrigan in modern pagan books, but it just doesn't track back to the ancient ways that we understand the Morrigan. Sally was just in Vienna and saw the original Hecatron triple goddess statues from 2 BC, and they were all maidens. No focus on women's ability to give birth present. Yeah. So Bave and Matcha, they're not aspects of the Morrigan. They are 3 sisters and they're separate entities. So they're not aspects of one entity. Does that make sense? So I think this is where the idea comes, that's where the idea comes from. So they've conflated this idea. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? Yeah. Morgan Le Fay, that's another one. She's not anything to do with Morgan Le Fay at all. That's another, like, the basically the only connection that the Morgan has to Morgan Le Fay is the name. And it's a very superficial connection. So the Victorians had a good amount of, yeah, she's Welsh. So the Victorians have a lot to answer for, and that's one of theirs. So that's another thing that we don't need to conflate the two. They're quite separate. The other thing about the Morrigan as well is that she's associated with cows and cattle, which cows and cattle are actually animals of the East. And the East is, the main attribute of the East is prosperity. So she can also be associated there as well. She appears at thresholds and liminal spaces, and she straddles boundaries between worlds, which we'll see when we meet her in the other worlds. There's this idea of her like being a bridge between the other worlds and this world. And some people even question whether she is a goddess, whether she should be called a goddess, because she's actually Tuatha De Danann. She's a she being, so you know about the whole fairy thing. Do we know about that? So the fairies, so the Victorians turned the fairies or the fair folk or the good folk into these like little, tiny wee cute things. That was the Victorians that did that. That's also completely fake, sort of false, in terms of how the Irish and Scottish understand the she. Those are powerful, full-sized beings that you don't mess with. They're like, so she is one of them. So some scholars question whether she should be called a goddess rather than an immortal being as well. So we've got that energy about her. So how are we feeling about the Morrigan at the moment? Are we like, oh yeah, maybe I'm feeling this like more kind of like multifaceted, interesting, supportive being? Yeah. Rather than just a reduced kind of neo-pagan war goddess. Cool. So the medieval evidence points to three kind of domains of sovereignty that we can connect with. The territorial sovereignty, so like the land itself. Political sovereignty, which is the legitimate kingship. So in order for you to be an effective tribal leader, in order for you to maintain your political sovereignty, you had to be in right relationship with the land, with the goddess of the land, with the goddess of sovereignty, which is also what the Morrigan is. The Kayak is another one. So the Kayak is the goddess of sovereignty and at the centre of the wheel, but there's I'll talk about that in my book. Don't take, I'm on a segue to come back. So we have territorial sovereignty, we have political sovereignty, and then what we might call personal sovereignty, which is autonomy over self, right? So in the ancient world, sovereignty means freedom, independence, self-determination. So your relationship to self and how you showed up in your tribe was vitally important. And those who lost sight of that balance would be cast out, especially the kings, especially the leaders. They had to be in right relationship with the land. And the land was the goddess of sovereignty, who was the Morrigan. Or Danu's another one, and the Kayak. Some people think that these goddesses, if you go back far enough, would have been one goddess of sovereignty. But again, another workshop for another day. So what does that mean for us today then? So I think what it means is when we lose access to our spiritual senses, when we lose access to those like innate gifts, we lose access to our sovereignty and vice versa. So we become dependent on external validation, or you need someone else to tell you what's real, or you do lots of courses, but you never manage to actually use any of it. Like whatever your poison is. So she's the being that helps us to reclaim our inner kingdom, And one thing about the Morrigan that I'm sure you all know is that she won't do it gently. She doesn't coddle. She's not going to hand it to you on a silver plate either. I think that what the Morrigan expects when we work with her is for you to really show up with intent and action. Because there's one thing to do a class like this and for it to be all like for you to get information that's really useful, for you to have like insights, for you to like have the experience and for it to be amazing. And then you go back to your daily life and nothing changes. So that's just going to mean that nothing will change. All right. So one thing that the Morrigan's going to ask of you is that you make at least one change after this class. Now, what that change is, I have no idea, but it could be really simple. It could be a really small thing like, oh, I am going to, well, what time of year is it? This is a busy time of year. I am going to take half an hour every day for myself, regardless of what's happening for the rest of this week, this incoming week, half an hour a day. I'm going to lock myself, if you have to lock yourself in the bathroom, you know, that's like an example of what I'm talking about. Something that you know you need to do, but you're kind of like avoiding it, or that's the way that we reclaim sovereignty. So the Celts were action-orientated people. We have action-orientated ancestors. There is definitely an energy in the north of hibernation and drawing in and being quiet, which is true, but we do live in a modern world. So if you are going to be seeing people and going to be busy over the next few days, you will definitely be able to find one thing that you can like connect with and make a change. I am going to speak up when my insert family member says something passive aggressive. I am going to just try to think of examples to get the guides to bring me some examples. I am going to say no to some of the things I don't enjoy doing. And that might be a bit late if you're cooking Christmas dinner, right? But like, I'm just gonna say no to something that I don't want to do. Actually, I don't want to visit this person. I'm just going to cancel, for example, right? You can really take the power of Morrigan into this incoming week and have her support you with some of these choices. Now, as I speak, is anybody like, oh yeah, I know what mine's going to be? Write it in the comments for me. You're going to spend some compassionate time with child parts that are struggling, Kirsty, lovely. The similarity between Cree and Celtic culture is amazing. Yeah, it is actually. I've had quite a few conversations about that with a few people. Jackie's going to accept all parts of herself. To find out who you are again, Snow. You were told to rest, dang it. The other thing as well that is a good one at this time of year is connecting with joy. So one thing that I realised about myself a few years ago is that I was always busy at gatherings. I love a gathering. You may have noticed, I'm like, come on, gather. And I would bring people in and I'd cook and create space, and I just loved it. But what would often happen is, back in the day, before I realised I was doing this, is that I'd be so busy organising and doing and making sure that everybody had their needs met that I wouldn't talk to anybody and I wouldn't remember most of it, and everybody else would have had a great time, but I didn't. And what I realised was that I was avoiding joy. Brene Brown does a lot of really good work on this, but essentially I was like, shit, I'm like so busy, I'm not holding space here, I'm like avoiding joy. So that would have been one for me. I would have been like, I'm going to spend time, however long, just being with my family and enjoying my day and being in joy and feeling joy in my body. That's a good one as well if you're one who avoids that. You're going to commit to a personal meditation, Maya. Marina starts courses and doesn't finish them, so she's going to pick one. Yay! Fantastic. Good. So y'all are feeling it, right? Y'all are feeling that energy, which is great. Okay, yes. What else do I want to talk about? Time is at 10:06. Okay. So the battle to reclaim spiritual senses is often against the conditioning inside our mind. Now, we do a lot of this type of work in the three cauldrons. Does anybody know what the three cauldrons are? I mean, everybody who's in the membership, I'm going to recognise all your faces, but does anybody not know what the three cauldrons are? Put a 1 in the comments if you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Some people don't know. Ooh, that's exciting. This is not in the script, so I've got 2 minutes to like play about the three cauldrons. So who knows what chakras are? Everybody must know what chakra is, right? So chakras are an Eastern inner, I don't really know, I've never resonated with the chakras exactly, but basically I found out that we have our own inner power center tradition, like chakras, and they're called the three cauldrons. There's an ancient poem called The Cauldron of Poesy, which I have the translation, a good translation is hard to find. I think there's only 3. Someone else that I know, Sharon Pace McLeod, who's written some really good books on Celtic mythology and spirituality, is in the middle of writing a book on the three cauldrons, and she is an academic. She's a Harvard academic, so I'm very excited to read that book. But essentially, my whole program inside the Cauldrons Way is working through your 3 cauldrons in order to support yourself back to your connection to Imbaz. For Osney, your spiritual senses, your spiritual gifts, seership, whatever it is, whatever your poison is, this is the way that we do it. Who loves, I mean, it's pretty good, right? So the 3 cauldrons is cool because for me, I'm like, I just wrote something years ago called The Apprenticeship, and I tried to make it the 4 directions, and it wouldn't write in the 4 directions. It just wouldn't do it. I couldn't make it fit, and it ended up being 3. And I was like, fine, I'll just make it 3. So I had 3 stages. And what I realised, and I wrote this before I even knew much about Celtic shamanism at all, because I actually started in core shamanism. So when I found the 3 cauldrons, it struck me almost immediately that I had written a programme on the 3 cauldrons. So then I redid the apprenticeship, and it's now called the Cauldrons Way Course and Community, which is the space that I hold, like quite a few of y'all in there in here. And we work through the 3 cauldrons together in community. Now, in order to get to the point where you're like connected with sovereignty, there's a couple of different frameworks that we can use for that in Celtic tradition, and you can use them in tandem. So one is the Celtic Wheel of the Year, which is my new book, and we work our way around that. However, the 3 cauldrons can come into it as well. So you can kind of start to, when you start to learn these different modalities, you can start to like layer them up. So if you're a person who's like, I really worry about cultural appropriation. Anybody? Yeah. We have so much rich stuff here in Britain that we don't need to. We have inner power centres. We have a Wheel of the Year. We have ancient traditions that go back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Now, it is a broken lineage, and we do have to make allowances for that. We don't have a lot of information. You know, there are gaps, but the joy and the excitement is that what we get to do here is, if you're creative at all, who's a creative, spiritually creative soul, if you're creative, then it means that you get to like fill the gaps in yourself with your guides and with your spiritual team, which is so much fun. So we do a lot of that in the Cauldrons Way as well, where we encourage and teach. Well, I teach you how to work your way through these processes, and then people come in and say, oh, I'm a psychoanalyst and I can see how I can fit what I know into the 3 cauldrons modality. Or there's like Reiki practitioners who come and train and what I teach, and then they use the 3 cauldrons in their Reiki instead of chakras. So there's like a whole way of like connecting with the land where your ancestors or you, where your roots run deep. So you don't need to look in other places if you don't want to. And I have no judgment on that. I'm like, bash on, but I don't. I love it. I love being like, what? I have this issue. I need support with it. What can I find from my ancestral wisdom tools that can support me with that? And invariably, we find what we're looking for. All right. So we're coming up to close to part 2 when we're going to do our journey together to the Morrígan. Before we do that, I'm going to ask Dave to post some links here in the chat space. What is really helpful? This is a collaborative event with my publisher, and no, I don't know if you know the story, but I'm on TikTok. I've taken a sabbatical from TikTok because it got really wild and it was a bit much, and mostly on Instagram. But anyway, he found me on TikTok and asked me to write my first book, which is The Cauldron and the Drum, which I'm very proud of. I love my wee book, my first wee book. It's my first wee baby. And then he asked me to write this second book. But what is interesting is that I'm always like, I would like to do well as an author, because they trusted me and they like plucked me out of thin air and said, please, can you come and do this? So pre-orders are really important for me and for my relationship with my publisher. So if anybody is going to buy the book, now would be a good time. What I've done is I've taken the liberty. I'll actually pop it in. I don't know if Dave's there, but I've just, oh, there we go, we've both done it. So I've got a non-Amazon US. I know some people don't like Amazon, so I've got a couple of non-Amazon options for the US and the UK, and also Amazon UK, Amazon US. Sorry, guys, in Canada and everywhere else, but in Europe, but I don't know what the links are for you guys. But a quick Google search will sort you out. A lot of you will already have it on pre-order. Who's that? Who's already got it? And some of you even got a wee copy to read in advance, didn't you? Because you're going to do some, what's the word I'm looking for? Reviews for me on day 1. So you've got a chance to read it. Super. Yay. Great, you're reading it. Yeah, Mary, you've got yours and you're reading it now. Really enjoying your reread. Fantastic. Okay, so if you plan to buy this book, if you can do it, if you're planning to do it anyway, maybe you do it in the next 5 minutes, that'd be great. And a wee break that we're just about to have. All right, so, and some people are also putting some links in as well, which is great. Yeah, envious of those who've got it already. Yeah, so that's the thing. If you're in my membership, then I invited people to come along and grab like read it, pre-read for me. So if you're in the membership, you get all kinds of like wee treats like that. So we're going to take a wee break, just 5 minutes, because 2 hours is a long time and I've thrown a lot of information at you. When we come back, we're going to do a guided journey together, and then we'll spend some time afterwards sharing, and then if there were any questions, I'll take some questions. So I'll see you in 5 minutes. Hello, welcome back. Thank you to everyone who pre-ordered in the break. Very much appreciated, and everybody who's pre-ordered so far. That is really means a lot. I know how much our time is worth. So the fact that you want to use your time to read my book is lovely. Very thankful. Alrighty. Okay, part 2. So we're just going to do a really quick thing before we begin. Part 2, and it's something called seining. So I'm just going to give you a wee Celtic tool that you can take away with you. Does anybody not know what seining is? Number 1 in the comments for me. Great. Okay, so some folk don't. Do you know what smudging is? Yeah. Okay. So although it's not a direct equivalent, seining is a bit like smudging, but Celtic. So again, we have our own tradition. We don't need to connect with a tradition that potentially isn't ours, although some of us do. And, you know, I think some people are taught by Indigenous people as well. I have no issue with smudging if it's interacted with thoughtfully and mindfully. But for me, I like to seine, which is slightly different. So smudging is a calling down of Great Spirit, which is different. It's actually the opposite of seining, which is a purification ritual or spell, if you like, in Scottish folk magics. This is a deeply Scottish tradition, although there is evidence for it in Ireland and in Wales as well, archaeological evidence. But it's actually one of the few live living practices that we still have today in Scotland, which is really exciting. So seining primarily is a removal of the word escapes me. Does anybody have perimenopause symptoms? Because I do. So sometimes words just leave my brain. So it is a purification ceremony or ritual, and there's a few different aspects to it that you can connect with. One of them is smoke. So you might use juniper, or this is chamomile for that. And I like to gather things that grow on the land where I live. I also have a herbalist for a sister. Some of you will know Wendy. So she makes these as well. Cougar puberty, I'm going to steal that one, Daria, that's very funny. So you can use smoke. You can also, though, use water. Now, water is actually used more often in seining, and it's called lustration, has a slightly different name. So you can use water, and that would be a very gentle splash, or you can even stain yourself by drinking water. You can use sound as well, rattles. But whatever you choose to use, it is accompanied by a symbol that we make with our hand. And the symbol is in this shape, an X. Do you know what the Scottish flag looks like? The X, that's the shape you're making. But you make it with your thumb. And the shape means to make sacred. So seining is an invitation for the thing, space, or person to become sacred. So we're not doing it. It's like a connection to animism. So the Celts believed everything has a soul. It's a deeply animistic society. And so what seining does is connects with the idea of animism and invites the object to become sacred, to remove any unwanted influence, is what I was trying to say earlier. That's what I was trying to say earlier. So we remove unwanted influence. Now, a lot of Scottish tradition is concerned with the restless dead. So seining would often be to remove unwanted influence from the restless dead. But again, we're taking our traditions and making them relevant for today. So I like to stain my house when after, like, you know, if I do like maybe like a monthly deep clean or something, I'll stain as well. So it's like a spiritual spring clean. It can be that. I can stain myself. I can stain if I buy an object or something comes into the house, I'll stain the object. Like, it's just part of my like day-to-day routine with things. So I thought I would share that. There's more. I mean, it's like full of shameless plugs, but it's in the book as well. So there's like detail in there about staining. Doesn't matter what thumb it is, and it doesn't matter what arm it is, and it doesn't matter where you start. The symbol is here. So think of the Scottish flag, the X of the flag, and that's what you're drawing. I haven't been able to find if the Scottish flag is connected to staining or the symbol in any way. I've looked because it's really occurs to me that it might be connected, but I've not been able to find any evidence of that. And lots of people say that, Danica, that they've been staining for a long time, or they have this sense of what they're doing, and maybe without the X, but you can add it, which is great. So I've just stained the space, and all of us, maybe you can stain yourself. You feel drawn to do that right now. So making ourselves sacred for this piece of work. So very briefly, if you haven't connected with a shamanic, this is like a guided shamanic experience, basically. Anybody who's a bit confused by the fact that I use the word shamanism, I found my way to this work through shamanism originally, through core shamanism. That was my training was. I didn't realise that we had much to do with shamanism in Britain. And when I did realise, I was like, this is amazing. So lots of people find me through that path. So I don't use the word druid or pagan or witch, but I could, and they would all be completely fine. I just find my way from that label. Some people will say you shouldn't use the word shamanism, but I'm like, whatever, you shouldn't use the word druid, because the druids, there weren't any druids in Britain. It was a whole thing. They were actually there's one mention of a druid, the word druid, in any literature anywhere, and it's a very brief one in an Irish text, and there's no mention of druids anywhere else. It's Europe. Druids were European. So you could, and I say that just to like remind everybody that whatever label you choose, if it feels good and you want to connect with it and you love it, just do that. Because you'll always find someone who'll tell you that you can't do this and you can't do that and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, but who cares? Who cares? We thankfully don't live in a world where spiritual authority over us exists anymore. We're very lucky. Well, most of us anyway. There are some people who still live like that, but if you're here doing this work with me, then it's a real privilege. So take advantage of your privilege. Don't waste it by worrying about what other people think. Sorry. Again, off script. Right. So, guided journeys. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to guide you on a journey to meet the Morrigan. There will be a point of time in the middle of the journey where I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to leave you with the Morrigan to have whatever experience you have. And then I'm going to bring you back. Okay? Then once we're back, there's going to be a piece of music at the end. I'd like you to stay down. I'd like you to stay in the ceremony if you can. Keep your eyes closed, because that's the point of the ceremony where you really integrate what's happened. So if you rush out too soon, then you kind of lose the momentum. If you're one who likes to come in and out of a journey and write notes, you can do that. But just at the end, for this 3-minute song, I'd like you to stay down and journey space if you can. Now, I'm going to say things like, you're going to cross a river and you're going to do this thing and and follow the ancestors, and there's going to be words. And lots of people think that they're not doing it right if they don't see things like a movie. Anybody worry about that? You're like, I don't see anything. This isn't working. Why do I not see the bog or see the ancestor? You very often, don't see anything at all. It's very normal. I'd say, what do you reckon, guys, in the membership? 50% of people are like, I don't see anything. Yeah, so it's very normal. So what you want to do if you're not seeing anything is you really want to feel your body, notice sensations. And the other thing is, what is your knowing? What is that inner voice saying? What is that inner knowing bringing forward for you? And just relax. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Your imagination is your best friend. Your imagination is your best friend in this kind of work. People are like, oh, it's just your imagination, or just made it up, it's just my imagination. I'm like, oh my God, it's totally an imagination. That's like the whole point. So like, as human beings, we have this thing called imagination, and imagination uses so much energy that if it wasn't absolutely necessary, we wouldn't have developed it in the first place, and we would no longer have it. It would have been selected for, because it's so resource heavy in the body. We need it. It's like it's a deeply connected spiritual sense that we have relegated to a dusty childhood toy box, and I invite you today to reconnect with it and bring it back out to play. Okay. Mary's just to say, Una's saying that they receive lots of somatic sensations. Mary only sees colours. Denise senses things and then knows things afterwards. Daria feels the experience. So these are all the things to connect with all these energies. Morrígan is a fierce energy to work with and can be quite intense. Like I feel a big energy coming into the space as we prepare for this time together. So if it becomes a little intense, that's very normal. You might feel uncomfortable, you might feel itchy, you might feel like shaking, you might just let your body do whatever it needs to do. That's really important. Sometimes in the West, we have a habit of just going with our mind and leaving our bodies behind. But if your body wants to join in, please let it. And that's an important part of the work. And if it is uncomfortable and intense, just come back to the breath. And know that you are the master of this experience, so you decide. So if you've had enough, that's fine. So our intention for this journey is, I'll put it in the chat as well. What do I need to know to reclaim my sovereignty and awaken my spiritual senses? And I've just put that in the chat for anybody who would like to write that down. What do I need to know to reclaim my sovereignty and awaken my spiritual senses? Now, one last wee thing. Don't need to keep remembering your intention. You don't need to be like, what was my intention? What was my intention? What was my intention? The Morrígan and the guides and the ancestors know what your intention was. You've just written it down. We've set our intention. When an open space, we'll set it again with words. So you don't need, you just can forget it. You can forget about it. It's set. And then when you come back, you compare your experience to your intention, like a key to a map, but you don't need to remember it throughout because it will just get in the way. So before we begin, does anybody have any questions? You can lie down, you can sit up, you can move. I can see a couple of people on their feet. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, now's the time about the journey. Anybody who doesn't can start to prepare. So you'll want to lie down or sit up. You can do what you like. Be comfortable, be warm, probably. You're welcome to turn off your video or leave it on. That's entirely up to you. And there's no questions, so we will begin. You just like to settle into your comfortable positions and take a few breaths. And now take a breath in and then a second breath in and hold. And then a long, slow breath out. And the same again, please. 2 breaths in. Hold. And a long, slow release. And one more time, please. 2 breaths in. Hold. Long, slow release. And you are present. You are here. You are now. You're so present that you notice the weight of your body, where you sit or lie. You notice the contact points between you and the earth around you. And now you notice any thoughts, any chatter. The ancestors move in now, and they offer to hold your thoughts for you. You must agree to release them, but if you agree, they will reach in and gently take those thoughts to their hearts. So these thoughts are not suppressed. They're just held safely for you until you return. You do not need them where you're going. So you feel that. And you allow the ancestors to gently and lovingly quiet your mind. You feel your heart rate settle and your body relax. Your mind quietens. And we feel the ancestors now circling and protecting this space. The 4 sacred directions of north, east, south, and west, and the centre, the sovereign centre, the divine centre within each of us, here and those yet to come. Everyone is included through space and time in this sacred healing temple of light. We feel sovereignty, we feel the birthright. Sovereignty is yours simply because you're alive. And we feel the Morrígan move into this space. She brings her fierce energy, but she is fiercely for you. She wants you to reclaim your power. She sees you in your sovereignty. We feel the energy and welcome the energy of the winter solstice, the longest, deepest dark, the place where the feminine mysteries are reclaimed, including your senses, your spiritual skills. And we feel our own guides with us. Whether we know them or not, we know they are there. Our intention for this sacred healing circle this evening is to ask the Morrígan, what do I need to know to reclaim my sovereignty and awaken my spiritual senses? And we release attachment to the outcome of this ceremony. We release our ideas and our thoughts. We simply surrender into this learning space, this opening space, this mystical space. We have no attachment to outcome. We simply surrender. We listen and we trust. We will receive what we need, this evening. The space is now open. You feel the ancestors now moving close to you. The ancestors will be your guides for this journey. You sense them and you feel them. Perhaps you even taste them. The ancient taste of ancestral wisdom. You find yourself now standing at the edge of a bog. Ancient peatland stretches before you, and dark water gleams between tufts of sedge and heather. The ground is uncertain, neither fully land nor fully water. A threshold place, a boundary zone. You know you need to cross this bog, and you wonder how to do it. But the ancestors who have walked this path before are here with you. You might sense them, see them, or feel them, but they've crossed this bog many times. They know where to step. Follow them now as they move forward. They have lamps, and they place their feet with care, testing each tussock. Follow them, step where they step. You trust their knowledge of this liminal ground. One step, then another. The bog yields slightly under your weight, but it holds. Water seeps around the edges of each foothold, but it doesn't pull you down. You move carefully and attentively, following the ancestors who lead you. Mist rises around you. Boundaries blur, and you are neither fully in this world nor yet in the other. You're in the crossing between place. You leave your ordinary perception behind. The ancestors lead you deeper into the bog. Time feels different here. Stretched thin, or maybe compressed. You keep walking. You trust the guidance of the ancestors through this uncertain terrain. And then the ground begins to shift, becomes firmer, and you realise you've crossed through. The bog lies behind you, and you now stand in the other worlds. This place feels different, clearer, more vivid, as though everything exists more fully than it does in ordinary reality. The air itself feels alive and aware. The ancestors begin to walk along a path and you follow them. And then they move all around you, so you're surrounded by them, protected in this place. You're safe as you wander the other worlds looking for the Morrígan. In the distance you hear water. It becomes louder. And before you, a river flows. It's not too wide, but it's very swift. Its current carries power and purpose. And there, as you round the bend, you see her. The Morrígan, the Phantom Queen, stands straddling the water itself, 1 foot on this bank, 1 foot on the far bank. Her hair falls in 9 loosened tresses, and she wears a red cloak. She is utterly present, claiming space with absolute sovereignty. She's been waiting for you. She knows you're coming. This meeting was always going to happen. The ancestors lead you to her now. She brings both feet to this shore and she turns her attention fully to you. You feel the weight of that attention. The power of being seen by one who sees beyond all veils. You might speak with her now, you might just listen. She may take you somewhere, or you may simply be in her presence and absorb her teachings. I will be silent now. This time belongs to you and to the Morrígan. finishing your time with the Morrígan. The ancestors invite you to follow them back the way you came. You reach the bog, not quicker this time, lighter of feet. You take your gifts, healing, teaching, wisdom, guidance, back across the bog, through the mist, and into this space and time. Take your time with this process. And now I invite you to stay with the ancestors and to stay with the energy of this time together, and allow what you've been given to integrate into your body, into your cells, into your being, before you rush back this time and place. The music will now change, and when this song is complete, the ceremony will close.
This weary earth we walk upon, she will endure when we are gone. While kingdoms come and kingdoms go, rivers run and rivers flow. You know I don't believe it's true that in this world there's nothing new, for darling, you have just begun. Rivers flow and rivers run. And if the river should ever run dry, somewhere the rain will still fall, will still fall from the sky. When I'm beguiled by the fear, the darker days are drawing near, my darling, you seduce the sun. Rivers flow and rivers run. And if the river should ever run dry, somewhere the rain will still fall, will still fall from the sky. This wounded earth we walk upon, she will endure when we are gone. But still I pray that you may know how rivers run and rivers flow. And if the river should ever run dry, somewhere the rain will still fall, will still fall from the sky. I cross my heart and I hope to live just long enough that I can give it all to you, my darling one. Rivers flow and rivers run, my darling one. Rivers flow and rivers run.
We give thanks to all the beings who joined us today for this sacred ceremony. We give thanks and gratitude to the Morrígan, the ancestors, the old gods and goddesses, the spirits of the land, the sun, sea and sky, stars. And to ourselves for showing up, thank you. And we ask now for an easy transition from this space back into our lives and a clear pathway to integrate the wisdom, healing and guidance we have received today. The space is now closed, but blessings continue to flow. Thank you. Your time. Fingers and toes. Oh, stretchy. Feeling back. That's really important after an experience like that. It's just making sure you feel back in your earthly body, because if we try and live in the stars, then we are missing our whole life and we don't want to do that. So we want to like make sure we're like fully back. Wee cup of tea can be nice. Drink of water. Okay. So would you like to tell me how you're feeling? Lots of great, amazing, grateful, thank you. Very special, Angela. Cried, great, good release. Cried the whole time. Very healing thing to do, hard to speak. Woo, intense for Lacey, good. Brenda's feeling super connected to sovereignty. Hands opened. We're dancing. Transforming creatures. So the comments are going really fast. Sleepy from Lizzie. Yeah. Kathy joined late, but still glad you made the journey. So the replay will come out in the next couple of days, so you'll get that. Morgan does not mince words. It is normal to get a specific message, yes. It's also normal just to feel a little lighter, a little different. Everything's normal, and what is normal, right? So really the best thing to do is say, this was my experience, and this is right for me. Yeah. So what I'd like to suggest is, because we do have currently 130 people live here, I think some of you might have questions. We've got like 10 minutes, so I'll maybe get to some of them, but I do have a free space that I would invite you to join. And then after this, I'm going to put a post in the free space. So if anybody's like, I want to share my full experience and I would like Rhonda to bear witness to it, then you can put it as a comment under that post and I'll be able to really read it and be in space with you and bear witness, because I do like to do that, but when we have 130 people, it can get a bit much in 10 minutes that we've got at the end. And also, you know, sometimes we don't want to rule ourselves out too much, you know. Is that the free space, Dave? I think that's the paid space, but if you've got the link for the free space, we'll do it in there, and then everybody who's here can just join it, and there's no barriers to that. And there's lots of other cool things in the free space as well. Teachings, and there's a whole 3 cauldrons situation, so you can learn all about that in there as well. So she wrapped her cape around me. Is it my imagination? What did we say at the beginning? Yes, it's your imagination, but that's literally the point. That's what that is for. So well done, beautiful, gorgeous. You have a cape wrapped around you. Lovely. There's a teaching that I share called the Guardian Guide, which is like a guide that supports you in your day-to-day life. It's not a wall, but it filters out, especially if you're an empath and you struggle to shop or be around lots of people. There's a Guardian Guide that can help filter out that noise. So that kind of feels maybe a bit like a Guardian Guide energy. Great. Alyssa was in a triangle of 3. Love the 3s. She kicked me in the butt and was a training for me to push back and not accept it. Haha. That's good. That's a good one. Donna's release, rest, release, control, and flow. You had 2 spirit animals, Adrienne, lovely. Fantastic. So everybody here, it's a very brave thing to do, is to come and just, I think it's a brave thing to do to come and have someone else hold space, especially if you don't know me. So I'm really grateful that you chose to do that and to spend this precious time with me, especially when you don't know me, and that you trusted me with it, which is lovely. And it's also brave to come and work with the Morrígan, because anybody who knows anything about the Morrígan knows that you do need a bit of oomph, a bit of a spark, a bit of bravery, a bit of courage to come and do that, because she doesn't hold back. And one thing I can say about the Morrígan is when she gives you something, the best thing you can do for yourself is to put it into action. So do you remember before, earlier in the workshop, we talked about that action? We talked about what you were going to do afterwards. That's actually a really important part of this. It's all good and well to come to workshops. It's all good and well to read books. Please pre-order a book. But if that's all you do, then what happens? So there are 4 quadrants of healing. Who knows what they are? But do you know what the 4 quadrants of healing are? The top of your head. Some of you should, because it's the quadrants way. So we have the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. So if you spend all your time in either just the spiritual, or just the mental, or just the physical, or just the emotional, and you do any of the other, or you'll do 2 out of 4, you're always going to hit a barrier. Okay, so PK, there you go: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. Well done. So when you have an experience like this, you've had a spiritual experience in the spiritual quadrant, and then you'll be given some information, and that has to flow. It's almost like a Celtic. It's almost part of the wheel. You have to flow around the wheel of the different bodies. So let's pick somebody here. Let's just pick Margaret Jones. Chastised but supported. Do the things I know I need to do that I have been sidestepping. I was given a golden globe of confidence, self-acceptance and courage, which I put in my heart now for action. Great. So that almost sounds like a bit like power retrieval if you're using kind of core shamanic parlance. And what happens there is then you have this idea of like sidestepping things. To me feels like maybe it's something in the emotional body then. So it's like, well, what feelings do you need to feel in order to feel like you can then do something about it? Because usually when you're sidestepping something, you're sidestepping an emotion. Who's good at avoiding their emotions? Phones, food, shopping, whatever your poison is. Ice cream. Mine. Well, not that I can eat dairy anymore, which is rubbish. So now I've had to find some vegan situation that is actually very tasty, but that's mine. So this is the thing. One of the ways to like work with the emotional body is to find ways to connect with your emotions, which ties into different places in the wheel of the year. It ties into the middle cauldron, if you're using the cauldrons framework. So have a think about which one of those 4 quadrants that need some attention. Okay. With the 4 quadrants of the circle, the north is black. Does the spiritual connect with the north? So they don't connect officially. Okay. So what I don't like to do is I don't like to add to the confusion by creating new bits for a framework. So there's nothing in Celtic tradition around the 4 bodies of healing. So I won't connect them to the wheel of the year. There will be other people who've connected things that I will talk about, but I choose not to muddy the water any further. So we work with the 4 quadrants of healing within each of the three quadrants, which is part of the course that we do. So you learn more about that in Cauldron's Way. Nico has to go. No worries, Nico. Thanks for coming. Christine kept, where are you? Falling asleep, deep heaviness and darkness. She kept waking me up by shoving a map in front of my face. That's really interesting, right? So if we do like a really super quick reminder about connecting your intention to your experience, some of you might have time to do this later, is that we want to reconnect with our sovereignty and connect with our spiritual senses. So here and we want to remember that usually our experiences are metaphorical and not literal. So here we're like, so where are you falling asleep in your life? Where do you feel deep heaviness? And she's shoving a map in your face, which suggests to me that you potentially already know the map of things that you need to do, because it's like the map is the way round what it is that you're trying to achieve. So you've got some pretty cool imagery in there, Christine, that you can work with. So if anybody else would like to work with imagery in a bit more detail and have me comment on it or chat about it, then you are very welcome to join the free portal. I'm going to put a post in there after this class. They're just coming in so fast I can't actually read them all. But there's Dave. So Dave's put the free learning portal up. It's a really simple, stick your email address in so that we can email you email you the portal. Now we don't use Facebook or anything like that. We use a different system called Circle, so it's like off of social media, but it is an app that you can download. You can also use it on a browser, but either way, after this class, I'm going to go and put a post in, and it would be lovely to hear from some of you if you'd like to have a chat. So, I could do this for so long, when we should have made it 3 hours, but here we are. I really appreciate everybody's time and energy. You can also, if you have questions that you didn't get answered, then you can also ask that in the free portal as well. I do have a link to the, where is it? The song, share, copy link to song. There you are. There's a link to the song. It's called Rivers Run by Kareen Polwart, who's a Scottish artist. Beautiful. Yeah, so that free portal space, Tara, is where you can meet us after. And just want to make sure everybody gets that link that Dave put up further up the chat somewhere. But either way, if you go to my website, centreforshamanism.com, there's a drop-down menu, and in there you'll see free portal. Sign in there, and we'll be in there hanging out. All right. Thank you so much for coming. That was so amazing. I had so much fun. What a brilliant, there's so many of you, but the energy was fantastic. I just loved it. And I would like to stay and chat longer. But we said 2 hours, so I'll have to stick to the 2 hours. But I really appreciate your time. Many blessings for the solstice, for Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, and for Hogmanay or New Year, you don't know it. Have a wonderful time with your family if that's what you do. And I'll see you all really, really soon. All right, guys. I love you all. Bye, everybody.